When you think summer blockbuster, what comes to mind? In my eyes, it's pure spectacle brought to life on the screen. For many, particularly as of late, it may be superhero fanfare, as Marvel's been kicking off the summer in recent years, and these films, just like the original blockbusters, offer some spectacle that are sure to stir up a lot of conversation and intrigue. Within the summer season, schools have released and the weather's all cleared up, so more people, and especially more families, are tuning into their local theaters. Hence why you'll see more family movies. This is where Pixar comes in. For about as long as I can remember, Pixar has been able to offer up that spectacle every year. And this past June, we saw the release of Elemental, a movie that started in the trenches with bad headline after bad headline, but was able to climb out and become one of the biggest films of the year. This is the story of Elemental, the Pixar film that rose from the ashes. Like the title of the video, look at that. Alright, that's enough of that. To lay some of the groundwork, Elemental was announced in May of 2022, a little over a year before release. The Peterson-directed film was to be the 27th from the studio, and their first original film with a theatrical summer release since Inside Out in 2015, due to internal pushes for streaming as well as some sequels and a spin-off. While this video is more of a look into the film from a business perspective, I'll provide my own synopsis for those who haven't seen it. And if that's the case, it's quite fascinating that you even stumbled upon this video in the first place. Elemental follows fireperson Ember Lumen, the only daughter of first-generation immigrants in a city not built around people like them, as she falls in love with a water person, Wade Ripple, and attempts to navigate life while living up to expectations and traditions. Being an original film on the market is a much rarer occurrence in 2023, and Pixar has had some difficulty getting back into the box office, as we unfortunately saw with Lightyear, which is a topic for another day. And on top of all of this, it was a pretty crowded summer. Right at the end of last year, The Flash was moved up a week to June 16th, the same day as Elemental, which was sure to take up a lot of premium screens. These two were duking it out right in the middle of a month alongside Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, which is one of the most anticipated movies of the year, which was also set to occupy the animated space, as well as films like the new Transformers and Indiana Jones, and The Little Mermaid was still getting play around this time too. This is all to put in perspective that this film wasn't that anticipated to your average moviegoer based on all the options they had for the summer, as there were even bigger ones beyond those. Really, the only people that were looking forward to it were big Pixar fans in online spaces, being that there was a weird amount of criticism in the animation community in the months leading up to release, and a less than stellar reaction from Cannes did not help either. So there's a lot circulating this movie as the release is approaching, and I'm sure everyone at Pixar was just looking for someone to throw them a bone. And here we are on opening weekend, and that bone can be materialized in ticket purchases, right? You guys know where this is going. Not only did it open low, it was nearly the lowest opening in the studio's history, being slightly above Toy Story's $29.1 million. But if you count its full Thanksgiving weekend, Elemental did end up as the lowest with $29.5. As the internet already wasn't too kind to this film, it's not hard to imagine what the reaction to this was. Countless articles and videos claiming Pixar was dying or already dead, that this film was one of the biggest bombs of the year and was poised to lose hundreds of millions of dollars. Now, if it isn't obvious, I have no financial stake in this movie. And sure, there's a ton of vitriol directed towards Disney and big businesses, and anyone out there is well in their right allowed to feel how they want about the parent company or company itself. At the end of the day though, I love these movies and I want them to succeed. And it's a shame seeing layoffs and shakeups when they don't. Also, you guys know the drill, the success of these movies will lead to more like it. Needless to say, I and a lot of those that saw and enjoyed the movie were a bit bummed to see this lower turnout. But against all odds, it stayed afloat, and not just in America, but just about every nation it had released in. And it continued to staggeringly release over the following few months. One market where Elemental performed significantly above the competition was in South Korea, where it went on to become the most successful Pixar film in the region and the third biggest animated film, just behind Frozen and Frozen 2. It's also currently the highest grossing American release in the region for the year, a statement that I'm sure makes Peterson proud, being that this story pulls so much from his own with his parents who came from said region. So Elemental continued to play all over the world and found itself holding its own against a lot of competition. It wasn't long before it had taken a marginal lead over The Flash, even though it had nearly doubled it during their opening weekend. It went on to eventually surpass Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny in dailies, despite it opening higher and 2 weeks later, as well as holding its own amidst the phenomenon that was Barbenheimer. While I've seen some pointing to this success as it being the de facto family film, and that's why it played so well up until the August release of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, it's important to note that the theatrical family fanfare has kind of gone by the wayside. Though children's tickets may be significantly cheaper, any way you cut it, a trip to the movies is far less cost efficient than buying a month of a streaming service, as more and more evidence points to families opting for a Netflix or Disney Plus subscription. And as a side note, I went to the movies a lot as a kid, so I'd always know what I was looking forward to from the trailers or maybe on cable. It's hard to tell where advertising is going these days and if it's meaningful by any means. Obviously, Elemental isn't solely targeted at children, though the elimination of one type of moviegoer for any film can easily chip away tens of millions of dollars, and especially for films not based on an existing IP. Just a couple weeks after Elemental released, Ruby Gillman Teenage Kraken came out. Remember this one, everyone? Well, if you say no, I would not be surprised, as the turnout was hauntingly low, and this is DreamWorks Animation coming off a big comeback year. Now, I think the marketing for this film was downright awful, but parent company Universal doesn't care. They see this net loss at face value and commit to some major shakeups and cutbacks at the company. Now, Elemental fortunately didn't have the same fate as Ruby, as its performance was very much akin to Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, as both had a rough start, and I believe a major shift for both cases was a major push in social media and word of mouth. Social media is a tool that time and time again businesses prove they have no idea what they're doing, and for movie studios that's no exception. For every hit there's a dozen misses, and those hits are typically organic, or at least that's how they appear. Pixar's had a little go at being big on social media, at least in this modern day and age, but so far it's pretty separate from the theatrical space, being mainly through Luca and to a lesser extent Turning Red. While both had gone on to be some of the most successful movies on streaming, this move into the Gen Z space would certainly be attributed to individual creators on sites like TikTok and Instagram. Recent animated films such as Minions: The Rise of Gru and Spider-Man: Across the Spider-Verse saw pretty instant virality, and box office success followed for both. I feel like someone attempting to market for Elemental was looking to capture this, particularly with some of those fake theater reactions for Claude, which were pretty ridiculed at the time, and many thought Disney's marketing was getting real desperate. Eventually, through a little bit of luck and some determination, the film was able to get some people talking across a few different platforms. For the most part, it was entirely unrelated to those trial run ads, I'll call them, and more similar to that of Luca's, with edits and extended scenes, primarily through cam rips in this case, making the rounds, as it did end up serving as a strong word of mouth for audiences that otherwise wouldn't have had much interest in going to the theater. I believe someone at the marketing team saw that this was a better means of getting the word out, as there's multiple instances of high-res clips being offered to influencers to make these videos, which I think is a good step forward that a lot of films could take note of. So now that it's essentially all said and done at the box office, as Elemental's run essentially ended in every region the moment it was put on Disney+, the film ended just shy of $500 million, at $496, passing Tenet to become the highest-grossing original film since the start of the pandemic. While the 2.5 multiplier is often added to a film's reported production budget to find the quote-unquote real budget due to high marketing costs and localization to other countries, this isn't always an accurate number. While there's always some sort of Hollywood accounting going on in the background, I'm not entirely adamant on this rule for Elemental, as many have argued this number being $500 million for it, meaning it would barely have broken even, if at all. I personally don't see how the promotion of this film could have been anywhere near that of a Marvel film circa late 2010s. I'd say it was even less than that of Lightyear's just last year. Producers went on to say that the break-even was somewhere around 460, which makes sense all things considered, and I don't really think they'd be able to lie about something like that, being part of a publicly traded company and all. Disney also published an article about the box office run on their company website, and that's not the kind of puff piece a movie that lost millions of dollars would get, in my opinion. While the box office total is the most widely accessible number that we equate a film's success to, the story does not stop there. In fact, the real money comes in far later, and we're just getting started. 1 month before premiering on Disney+, Elemental released on Premium Video on Demand, where it had a few nice weeks in the top 10. I'm sure it helped that said streaming date wasn't published prior to it being purchasable. Lightyear was only given 1 day of PVOD before arriving on Disney+, and most other recent animated films from Disney and Pixar are sent right to the service before any pay window, which essentially eliminates entire streams of income for no reason, as the average Disney Plus subscriber isn't purchasing month to month for only one film at a time. As I mentioned earlier, Disney Plus killed the last ounce of momentum that the film had, as it was still in the top 10 in South Korea at the time of its streaming release. It also just didn't need to release in September, as the service just launched The Little Mermaid 2023 a couple weeks prior. And while the digital release was well before the Disney Plus release date, the physical release wasn't even taken into consideration, as it seems that's a market Disney is completely trying to kill off. But that could also be seen as an abandoned stream of income, I suppose, just more so consumer imposed. That all being said, the film still went on to make good money, just before an incredible launch on Disney Plus. And not just a strong launch, but with legs as well for the service. Nielsen is the company that tracks the viewership of television and streaming, and while they're about a month behind, Elemental has been amongst the most watched films for about 6 weeks now. Halloween week is the most recently tracked as of the time of me writing this, and it's still the third biggest film, and it will surely be one of the most watched of the year from less than only 4 months. Just as an update, it's taken a while for this video to come out and it's dropped down to 7th in mid-November, but it still stands to be one of the biggest of the year. That point still stands. Streaming numbers are good, especially really strong ones like this, indicating millions watching and rewatching day after day, being in line with recent Pixar successes on the platform and Disney films like Encanto, though albeit not as successful on streaming as the latter just yet, though Elemental is able to fall back on the box office gross that is significantly higher, putting it in a much more comfortable position. Viewers on Disney Plus, however, aren't where said money really is at. That would be a so far pretty unexplored venture in consumer goods. As of now, there's been minimal effort towards creating merchandise for Elemental. Your typical figures, plushies, and apparel was sold through Shop Disney as well as in the Disney parks. Box Lunch also put out a few products, but within your average Targets and Walmarts, you aren't going to find too much. Beyond one mini action figure pack and some books, nothing else really went into production, though I'd expect there to already be a lot on the horizon as internal confidence continues to grow in the brand. From release until now, Elemental has exceeded the expectations of mostly everyone and will continue to find success through the years as its story, world, and characters capture the hearts of more and more. There have even been rumors of continuing the franchise in some way, and whether it be through a sequel, series, or a short, I feel there's a lot to explore, and it'll be interesting seeing what ends up happening. While animated films such as the Super Mario Bros. Movie and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse went on to be massively successful, especially Mario, Elemental has so far been the only original animated film to scrape up success. With the aforementioned Ruby Gillman flopping, Disney's Wish currently having trouble, and Illumination's Migration already tracking far lower than the company's previous entries. While the latter two have months ahead of them, and very well could have run similar to that of Elemental's, each passing day may be seen as a gamble, and studios may just opt for an early release to streaming. Every original animated film won't have a run on par with Elemental's, thus the greenlighting of more and more sequels or films based on properties, and major originals are just being sent to Netflix or other company-branded services. While I believe Pixar will always create new properties based on original ideas, maybe with a few sequels sprinkled in here and there, I can really only hope that they continue to find their audience, as they always provide the spectacle. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. This video took a bit longer to make than my previous ones, but I have to thank you all for all the support on my Inside Out 2 and my 2024 video. I've got way more videos on the pipeline, so stay tuned, everyone, and let me know what you think of Elemental. I know there wasn't much discussion of the actual movie, more so just the business, but feel free to discuss any of it down below. And I'll see you all next time. Bye bye.